I told you that the absolute best secret to mastering a modern corporate job interview wasn't written by some Fortune 500 CEO?
Right, or, hidden in some massive elite psychology textbook on persuasion.
Exactly. What if the most effective playbook for navigating those high-stakes evaluations was actually just found inside a beginner's guide for English language learners? Welcome to today's deep dive.
It really does sound incredibly counterintuitive, doesn't it? I mean, we are all so conditioned to think that climbing the corporate ladder requires this complex, sophisticated rhetoric.
Oh, totally. We think we need to sound like a synergistic thought leader or whatever.
Exactly, but when you actually look closely at the mechanics of human communication under stress, complexity is usually your worst enemy.
And that is the core mission of our deep dive today. We are taking a comprehensive ESL guide that's English as a second language, meant to help non-native speakers survive a job interview, and we are just putting it under the microscope.
Yeah, and by stripping away all that cultural fluff and corporate buzzwords, the authors accidentally exposed the underlying behavioral matrix of every single interview on the planet.
It's brilliant because they had to make the concepts accessible, right? So it just reveals this highly predictable framework.
Right. When you stop worrying about sounding impressive and just look at the raw mechanics of the conversation, the fear surrounding the whole process really starts to evaporate.
So we are going to deconstruct this framework today. We'll uncover the psychology behind those archetypal questions, look at cultural boundaries, and equip you with strategies to control the narrative of your next interview.
To understand how this works, we really have to look at the psychological state of the room before anyone even opens their mouth.
Yeah, the guide offers a piece of advice that seems, well, almost embarrassingly simple. Just arrive 10 minutes early and dress nicely.
Right, which on the surface reads like a high school career prep flyer.
Mm.
But if we elevate this and look at it through the lens of signaling theory, it becomes much more profound.
Because it's not actually about punctuality, is it?
Not at all. Arriving 10 minutes early is an evolutionary signal of threat reduction.
Because the interviewer is subtly defending their territory.
Precisely. The modern office is a territory. If you arrive, say, 30 minutes early, you violate their temporal boundaries.
Oh, wow. So you're actually creating subconscious anxiety for the hiring manager.
Exactly. Now they feel pressure to entertain you or rush their own schedule. And arriving right on the dot makes you appear frantic, which signals a lack of executive function.
But that sweet spot, that 10-minute window, proves you understand and respect the unseen social contract of their environment. You are a safe presence.
And dressing well functions the exact same way. It is not about fashion. It's about signaling that you comprehend the norms of the tribe you're trying to join.
Right, so once you've established that baseline of physical safety, you sit down, the interviewer gets their notepad ready.
And their brain naturally shifts from, who is this person, to how do I contextualize them?
Which triggers the most common and paralyzing opening move in the corporate playbook. Tell me about yourself.
Which is a massive open-ended trap. It is completely designed to test your ability to synthesize information, and most people fail this immediately.
Because left to their own devices, humans just ramble, right?
Oh, completely. The cognitive load of summarizing an entire life on the spot is just way too high, so candidates start talking about their cats or a tangent about their morning commute.
Or they just list a disjointed timeline of fast jobs. But the source material offers a radically strict solution here. It gives ESL learners a rigid 3-part formula.
Right, the 3 pillars. 1, education.
Yeah.
2, work experience. And 3, interest in the role.
Yeah, they provide this starkly simple example. Like, I studied English at university. I worked as a teacher for 3 years. I want to use my skills in a new environment.
The genius here isn't the specific words, obviously. It's the cognitive architecture. For an advanced professional, you flesh those out, but you must maintain the strict boundaries.
Because you're lowering the cognitive load for the interviewer.
Exactly. You are handing them a clean, chronological roadmap. The education establishes foundational knowledge. The experience validates practical competence.
And the interest in the role acts as a psychological bridge, seamlessly connecting your past history to their company's future. It functions exactly like a movie trailer.
Oh, I like that analogy. How do you mean?
Well, when a studio releases a trailer for a summer blockbuster, they don't show you a comprehensive biography of the main character, right? You don't see them doing laundry or eating breakfast.
Right, they curate the narrative.
Exactly. They show you the setup, a flash of competence, and the inciting incident that drives the plot forward. Your answer to, tell me about yourself, should never be an exhaustive resume read aloud.
It's just the highlights that induce enough curiosity to make the interviewer want to buy a ticket for the whole show.
Curation is power. So, by strictly limiting your intro, you establish yourself as an organized thinker.
And once you've given them that roadmap, their brain naturally moves down Maslow's hierarchy of corporate needs. They've contextualized you, so their next instinct is to probe for vulnerabilities.
Which leads us into the absolute minefield of the interview, the strengths and weaknesses evaluation.
Right. Starting with strengths, the ESL guide suggests using very clear, blunt declarative statements. I'm hardworking, I'm a team player, or I'm organized.
For a highly experienced professional listening, the instinct might be to scoff at how basic that sounds.
Sure, but under extreme stress, candidates tend to overcomplicate their value proposition. They bury their actual skills under an avalanche of industry jargon.
They try to sound smart rather than clear, but returning to the simplicity of declarative sentences forces you to communicate baseline competence.
Exactly. Saying, I am highly organized in my project management is vastly superior to saying, I holistically synergize operational deliverables.
Right. One demonstrates confidence, and the other just demonstrates insecurity masquerading as intellect. But the real test arrives with the second half of the equation. What are your weaknesses?
Now, this is where so many people stumble.
Yeah, because a lot of old school career advice, mostly from the 90s, tells people to play a game here. They recommend using a fake weakness, the classic humble brag.
Oh, the worst strategy possible.
Right, like saying, my biggest flaw is that I just care too much, or I work too hard and forget to go home. But modern hiring managers see right through that performance, don't they?
They do, and it absolutely destroys your credibility. The humble brag is a catastrophic failure of emotional intelligence.
Because they aren't actually looking for a reason to disqualify you.
No. If they wanted to disqualify you, they would just scrutinize the gaps in your resume or your technical portfolio. The weakness question is a behavioral stress test.
They want to gauge your genuine capacity for professional growth. They want to know if you're going to be a defensive nightmare to manage.
That is the exact underlying fear. If you offer a fake weakness, you fail the test on two fronts. You signal that you either lack the self-awareness to recognize your own flaws, or you lack the integrity to admit them.
You become a massive liability. So the strategy outlined in our source text involves a simple two-step formula, honesty plus active growth.
Right. They use the example of admitting to being shy, but immediately following it up with the action steps being taken, such as actively speaking up more in team meetings.
You're basically transforming a vulnerability into a demonstration of resilience.
Exactly. You are looking the interviewer in the eye and saying, I am a human being with manageable flaws, but I am adaptable and proactive.
And from an economic standpoint, an employee who knows how to self-correct is infinitely more valuable than one who pretends to be flawless.
Completely. So at this point, you've successfully navigated the internal evaluation. You've proven your competence and demonstrated high emotional intelligence.
Right, and once the interviewer is satisfied that you aren't an immediate threat, the psychological focus of the room shifts outward. They begin to assess your external alignment with their specific operation.
This is the risk assessment phase. They are switching from evaluating your past to calculating your future utility.
And the source highlights two major questions here. Why do you want to work here? And where do you see yourself in 5 years?
For the why here question, the guide emphasizes specificity. You cannot offer generic praise.
Like saying, I think this is a great company. It just sounds like you copy and pasted your answer for a dozen different applications.
Right. You have to anchor your answer to their specific products, their recent market moves, or their stated values. Specificity proves effort. It shows you actually did your homework.
But let me introduce a dose of reality here. What if the listener doesn't have a deep, burning, passionate connection to the corporate mission of, say, a mid-sized regional logistics firm?
A very fair point.
Right. What if they genuinely just need a paycheck to cover their mortgage? How do you answer questions about your 5-year plan without feeling like a complete fraud?
Well, the reality of the labor market is that interviewers know most people are working to pay their mortgage. I mean, they have mortgages too. They aren't looking for a soulmate.
Okay, so what are they actually looking for with those forward-looking questions?
They are running an economic calculation regarding retention and onboarding. Hiring a new employee is staggeringly expensive. The time it takes to interview, train, and integrate someone is a huge drain on resources.
Ah, so they were trying to assess if you are a flight risk.
Exactly. If you project the attitude of, I just need a job right now, You signal instability.
Yeah.
You communicate that the moment a slightly better offer appears, you will vanish.
And their entire financial investment in hiring you will be lost.
Right. So by answering the 5-year question with a focus on taking on more responsibility within their framework, you aren't swearing a blood oath to logistics. You are signaling stability.
You are proving that you understand their business needs and that you intend to be a safe, reliable harbor for their capital investment. It's an act of professional respect.
You're telling them you understand how to play for the team, even if it isn't your favorite sport.
That framing completely changes the pressure of those questions. Now, assuming you've managed all of this perfectly, you might feel a sense of relief. The heavy lifting feels done.
But then the interviewer suddenly flips the script.
Right. They lean back, look at you, and ask the final trap question. Do you have any questions for me?
And this moment catches an alarming number of highly qualified professionals completely off guard.
The ESL guide has a hard, non-negotiable rule for this scenario. You must always say yes. Declining the offer to ask questions is universally destructive to your chances.
It really is.
I always think of this like going on a first date. Imagine sitting at a table, listening to the other person talk about their life for an entire hour. You nod, you perform active listening, and then at the end of the dinner they ask, "So what do you want to know about me?" And you just shrug and say, "Nothing, I'm good."
It's a brilliant analogy because the mechanism of failure is identical. Saying no questions signals a complete lack of curiosity about a mutual future.
Because throughout the entire interview, the power dynamic has been asymmetrical. They have been evaluating you.
Exactly. When they invite you to ask questions, they are temporarily offering to share that power. They are inviting you to treat them as a peer and evaluate the partnership.
And declining that invitation makes you look entirely passive.
Passive, disengaged, and strategically unprepared. The source material provides a few beautifully simple templates that work universally, though.
Like asking, what is a typical day like in this role?
Right, which forces the interviewer to mentally visualize you already doing the job. Or asking, what do you personally enjoy about working here? Which leverages a fundamental psychological truth.
People love talking about themselves.
They really do. It turns the spotlight onto them in a highly flattering way, and it usually ends the interview on a warm, conversational note.
And finally, asking about the next steps in the hiring process demonstrates a proactive desire for closure, which leads directly into the physical exit.
Yes, the guide emphasizes a clean, professional dismount, thanking them for the opportunity, expressing a desire to hear from them, and a polite goodbye. It leaves a lingering impression of grace under pressure.
Now, up until this point, we've been analyzing the universal human mechanics of the interview room, the threat assessments, the cognitive loads. But our source material introduces a fascinating pivot that we have to discuss.
The geographical context.
Yes, where you are sitting in the world completely redefines the boundaries of this psychological evaluation.
The rules of engagement are entirely dictated by cultural history.
The text highlights a stark contrast between interviewing norms in China versus interviewing in the West. Let's look at the Western model first, places like the United States or the UK.
Right, where we have built massive, strict legal firewalls around the concept of personal privacy.
Exactly. In a Western interview, questions are violently restricted to your professional skills and your direct corporate experience.
Asking a candidate about their age, their marital status, or whether they plan to have children isn't just considered rude, it is often radioactive from a legal liability standpoint.
Because the Western philosophical approach assumes that your personal life has zero bearing on your professional utility, right? Bringing it up introduces unacceptable bias.
But the guide points out that in China, the paradigm is completely inverted.
Right. Interviews tend to be highly formal, often utilizing panel structures where multiple decision makers evaluate you simultaneously. And crucially, it is entirely normal to be asked deeply personal questions.
Questions about your family structure, your age, and your domestic life. For someone raised in the Western tradition, that feels like a massive boundary violation.
But we have to understand the sociological history driving it, don't we?
Absolutely. In more collectivist cultures, the individual is not viewed in a vacuum. Your personal context, your familial stability, and your adherence to social roles are considered vital data points.
Because they use that data to understand how you will integrate into the collective harmony of the corporate team.
Exactly. And that is the ultimate irony hiding inside this cultural comparison. You have two diametrically opposed methodologies.
One violently protects individual privacy, and the other actively probes personal context. And yet, despite these vastly different roads, both cultures are driving toward the exact same destination.
It strips away all the cultural dressing and reveals the raw biological reality of human collaboration.
No matter if you are sitting across from a single startup founder in Silicon Valley or facing a 5-person tribunal in Beijing, the evaluators are ultimately trying to answer just 2 evolutionary questions.
Number 1, can you do the work? Do you have the baseline competence to execute the tasks we need to survive?
And number 2, will you fit in with the tribe? Are you going to disrupt our internal harmony, or are you going to elevate our collective output?
Right. The Western manager tries to answer the tribe question by asking how you handled a disagreement with a past coworker. The Chinese manager might try to answer the same question by exploring your familial respect.
The tactics are different, but the fundamental human assessment is identical. We are all just trying to figure out who is safe to let inside the gates.
Exactly.
So, to distill this entire deep dive into an actionable toolkit for your next high-stakes performance, let's review the meta-strategies we've extracted today. First, when you walk in the door, remember signaling theory.
Arrive exactly 10 minutes early to prove you respect temporal boundaries without causing territorial anxiety.
Second, when faced with the open-ended trap of, tell me about yourself, lower their cognitive load.
Use the strict 3-part formula: education, experience, interest. Give them the curated movie trailer, not the unabridged biography.
Third, when tested on your weaknesses, never fall back on the 90s humble brag. Pass the emotional intelligence test by offering the honesty plus growth formula.
Right. Name a real, manageable flaw and immediately explain the active steps you're taking to fix it.
Fourth, treat the future-facing questions as an economic risk assessment. Even if you are just there to pay your mortgage, signal stability and respect for their resources by aligning your ambition with their corporate framework.
And fifth, never walk away from the first date without asking a question. When they offer you the power at the end of the interview, take it.
Ask them what they enjoy about their job, forcing them to visualize you as a peer.
Armed with that understanding, the interview stops being a terrifying interrogation where you were just hoping to guess the right passwords. It becomes a structured, predictable conversation where you are actively managing the psychology of the room.
You stop reacting and you start directing. But before we wrap up today, I want to leave you with something to chew on. We've spent this entire deep dive analyzing the nuances of human interaction, how to make eye contact, how to signal emotional intelligence,
How to prove you fit into the tribe's culture. We've basically been discussing a deeply biological performance.
Exactly. But looking at the horizon of the corporate world, that biological performance is being rapidly outsourced.
Oh, completely.
With the explosion of AI resume screening algorithms, automated initial interviews where you just record answers to a lifeless camera, and the permanent shift toward remote work, how does that change the matrix?
It forces us to ask what happens to the tribe when the tribe has no physical territory.
Right.
If an AI analyzes the micro-expressions on your face to determine your honesty metric and you never actually share physical oxygen with the hiring manager, where does the mutual human assessment happen?
We have relied on the handshake, the shared smile, and the intuitive read of a room for a century to determine who we trust.
As those physical markers disappear into the digital ether, we really have to wonder if the traditional job interview itself might eventually become obsolete.
And if it does, what kind of performance will we be expected to master next? Something to keep in mind the next time you're sitting in a quiet lobby waiting for your name to be called.
Or the next time you are staring at a blinking green light on your webcam, waiting for the recording to start.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Keep questioning the framework.